Hey everyone, welcome to another
right.
edition of SeedTime Money Podcast.
Welcome back.
Here we are.
Here we are.
And I just finished up a 2-day, 48-hour whirlwind meeting with our head of marketing. And really, he's expanding out to doing a lot of different things. But it's a guy named Dylan on our team who's been working for us for about a year.
First guy
On the team,
First
really.
guy. I mean, I guess way back in the day, you had John.
Yeah.
He was like your
While
first
ago,
assistant,
yeah.
but it's been so long.
Editor. Yeah, first guy in a while, I guess. And our business model has changed so much over the years. But anyway, all to say, Dylan and I had a 48-hour whirlwind planning meeting, really just kind of praying, getting direction from God, where SeedTime is supposed to go this year, what we're supposed to focus on, and all these different things. And it was a really, really great planning meeting. You were in it for some of it, but some really good things came out of it.
Yeah.
And one of them we want to highlight today and just kind of share with you one of the cool things that kind of was unpacked out of it. And one of the things that I will just admit that is really, really hard as a brand is getting really clear on your messaging and getting clear on what it is you're actually doing, why you're doing it, who you're doing it for, all these different things. And so this kind of clarifies some of that for us, I think.
Yeah, I think it was exciting because for us, it's been like our entire marriage, so 18 years of all these things that the Lord has taught us and the things that have been put on our heart at different times. And so it's like an ever-growing thing, an ever-evolving.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's hard to just be like, oh, yeah, some of it is,
Well, I've had multiple people come to me now and say, after reading our book, say, you put words to a lot of things that I was thinking and feeling and felt like but you put words to it. And that's what so much of this is. And so what we're going to read you just in a minute here is something that was just that. It's like these are all things that we've been thinking and feeling and experiencing for over a decade. But we finally kind of rolled it up into something that communicates it a little bit, right?
Yeah, I think so. So, yeah, do you want to read it or do you want me to?
You read it. We just had a team meeting with our whole team and read over this. And, I think it's just clarifying for what that is. Greetings to all of you hanging out with us live right now. So every Thursday at 1 p.m. Central, we go live. And I'm glad you guys are all here.
Go live on YouTube.
So maybe, and what's fun about live is you don't know what's going to happen. And that's what makes it more fun.
But one time, Bob did a whole podcast in a robot voice.
True statement.
And he didn't know it.
But all of you who listen to the podcast, the recorded podcast, you never heard that.
You never heard it because Bob was like, heck no, we're deleting that.
It was only the ones who were there live who got to hear that. So anyway, that's what you get when you come live. You get some of those bonus, like, you know how they have like the pennies where they're like mistakes? You know what I mean? Do you know about this? Like in coin collecting, the mistakes are often the
more valuable ones.
Most valuable ones, yeah. So anyway, why don't you go ahead and read this?
Okay.
And this is what I will call this at this point is kind of our credo, maybe. I don't know if it's fully a mission statement, but it's like this is why we exist. This is what SeedTime is all about. I'll just say it that way.
Yeah. Okay. So it says, when all Christians invite God into their finances and he answers our prayers, here's the byproduct. More ministries are funded. More God-honoring businesses are started. More families are healthy and whole. More jobs are created. Christians influence the entire culture. More peace is in every household, neighborhood, city, and nation. More unity is in our marriages. God gets more say over where our dollars are used. And God leads our generation to unprecedented generosity. The whole community is blessed. Every need is met. We act more like the people who saw Jesus face to face. We have to turn people away from giving because there's no more need. The church lives like it's supposed to live. No one is dependent on earthly kingdoms, but living for the heavenly kingdom. There are no orphans and no widows in want. Our eyes are open to the needs of those around us. Christians will be the most generous faith group with no runners up. Our hearts are filled with God's love, and the world will know that we are His. I love that.
So that is why we exist. That is our goal, our reason for existing, and what we are going to spend the next 3 or 4 decades, however long the Lord,
or 5 or 6.
However long He leaves us on the earth and gives us the capacity to work, like that's what we're going to be fighting for. And one of the interesting things mentioned in here,
it will be for the rest of our lives, because even if we aren't, actively working, we will be working in the Spirit.
Yeah, absolutely.
And fighting
we'll
in
be
the Spirit
praying for this to the day we die.
Yeah.
But one of the things here that I want to highlight, because so as Dylan and I were talking, one of the things that he mentioned is that Christians as a religious group are not the most generous. I think he said Jehovah's Witness or something, like we're at the top of the list, and a couple other ones. And we were just kind of expanding out, like, what does it look like? Well, yeah, but like specifically, what does it look like for the big goals that we have an organization to reach? What if those goals are achieved, what happens in towns and communities and all this stuff, and trying to figure all this out. One of the things that came out of that was, if we're able to make the impact across the body of Christ and really change the way people see money, the way they operate with money, the byproduct of that is that Christianity as a whole is going to increase the percentage that they give. Like that's the byproduct. And ultimately what that means is that they're no longer going to be 3rd or 4th place on the most generous religion or religious groups. And that's something that I'm really excited about.
Yeah.
In a big, powerful thing that can change there. And the other thing that we mentioned as well is we might have talked about this before, but we had, what's the organization came when we were at church at one time?
America's Kids Belong.
America's Kids Belong. Anyway, they came, and in Tennessee, they said, so they came kind of talking about adoption and foster care stuff, and they came and said, in Tennessee, the number of churches that exist and the number of kids in the foster care system are actually really close. And so if every church, just one family in every church, basically adopted or fostered someone in the foster care system would be empty. And
which,
that's such a
part of the foster care system is a period of placement for a child in order to be reunited with their parents. So there's part of it is that, but there is no place for these kids to go. Some of them are like sleeping in the DCS offices because there's nowhere for them to go.
Yeah.
So that is a reality that I think most people aren't aware of unless you know. You don't know unless you know,
Yeah, and kind of pulling this back to what we're talking about here is asking this question of how do we help clean out the foster care system? And really, like back to what we were just saying here, I think it's a byproduct of all of this. The byproduct of a much larger percentage of the body of Christ inviting God into their finances, allowing God to invade their financial life, their financial decisions. Like what happens then, the byproduct is we have because some of those people in the churches, so we have average church, about 100 people in America, and to get one family who's thinking...
The average church in America has about 100 people. Yeah. Okay, you said that kind of backwards.
And so inevitably in every church, there's probably at least a couple families who are thinking about that, considering that, but are like, I don't know if I can handle the financial obligations, ramifications of that or whatever, especially with inflation and everything else going on. Like, can I handle another mouth to feed, all that stuff? And this is what solves that problem. Okay, so not only for that family, but also for other families in that church who get their finances changed and have a radical life change financially to where now they're like, maybe I can sponsor this family.
Yeah.
And maybe I can provide the funds needed for them to do it, even though I can't foster for whatever reason.
Right. Well, and even
what
in
I'm saying?
private adoptions, it can work this way.
Yeah. So anyway, we're just really excited, just kind of seeing the potential of really what is a God-sized dream and vision for what the future could look like, and what, I don't know.
Well, and I think we should add that there are probably a lot more things that we could add to this list.
Yeah.
This
is our first stab.
This is our first stab at it. I heard it for the first time an hour ago, and I really love. I mean, I love what's already on the list. But I know that it's not limited to this. But one of the other ones that I think I want to just call out is that Christians influence the entire culture. That was one of them, and I love that. I love that idea because right now we are not seeing Christians influence the culture.
Not enough, that's for sure.
Not enough, yes. We are seeing a lot of other things influence the culture. And we see what is going on in the world. Like it's not great. It's not great. And I think people are at an all-time level of miserable because of a lot of different things. And I think the main factor is that Jesus is not at the center of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have people, we have bullies in schools, like impacting, children who are wanting to take their own lives because they can't handle what's going on because the kids that they're around are, just them being out in the world is impacting them so much instead of Jesus being the main influence here.
Yeah.
And that's just one example. But, and even in our own story, I think one of the things that gets me caught off guard the most is oh man, that person has that, I'd really like it. That's one of the things that I struggle with the most.
Personally?
Is wanting more, sure. Yeah.
And so that's like, just keeping up with the Joneses, right? Is that what you're talking
keeping up with the Joneses, sure. And I feel like I've gotten a lot better at this. I feel like the Lord has brought me far in this, I should say. And a part of it is just the discipline of telling yourself no and the discipline of remaining focused on God. But, Instagram, I look at Instagram a lot, and there's a couple people in particular where I'm like, well, they just bought a new house and they're completely renovating it and getting all new furniture and it's perfectly decorated, perfectly curated. And by the way, they always have new clothes and their kids always have new clothes and none of their kids' clothes have holes in them and everything's organized and everything is, that
How
whole
much
thing.
work, just as a side note, how much work is it to keep your kids' clothes without any stains or holes? Maybe it's just our kids.
It's not. It isn't that much work. It's just you have to buy new clothes for them every single day of their lives.
Yeah.
If you're constantly buying new things, or if people are constantly giving you things for them, it can work different ways. But I remember one time I went to Bob. This was just a couple of years ago, and I was like, "We have a screened-in porch," and I was looking at our screened-in porch, and I was like, "We have this beautiful area in our home, and we have no furniture in it." And I was like,
we did.
Why
we have
isn't
furniture now?
Well, we have furniture now. But I said to Bob, I was like, why is it that this person and this person and this person can just buy furniture when they feel like it? They have furniture in there and they're like, I just wanted something new, and they just buy new furniture. And I really was like, why is this happening? And he said, they don't give their age as a percentage. That's what we do. They don't do that. And I was like, oh. Like it all of a sudden dawned on me, like we've put the emphasis on something else that is more important to us. And that is why that's not the important thing to us.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not trying to call anybody out for any specific reason.
But the point is, like, the
point is
have
that
made a decision.
Their focus is in a different spot than mine is.
Yeah.
And there's actually nothing wrong with that.
And everyone spends their money according to their values.
Right.
And so that happens to be something that we value really highly. And therefore, that's how we orient our money and how it gets spent.
Right. And I'm watching this, just the counterpoint of that real quick. I'm watching this show. It's on the Magnolia Network, which we'll talk about more in a minute. But it's called The Established Home. And it's by Jean Stouffer, and it's got like her whole family is basically in this thing. And Jean Stouffer is a designer. She started by designing kitchens or something. And I've been watching this, and she's doing all these home renovations, and it's really fun to watch. But what's striking me about this, I was watching it, and her kids have all these beautiful homes. And I'm like, they've put their money into these homes. But this is a Christian family, and there is something about the way they're doing it that is an extension of who they are, and almost in a way that the way they live their life is bringing God glory, and it's not that they have to have things a certain way in order to be happy.
Yeah.
It is because they are designers, and this is what God has called them to do, that of course that is a natural extension of who they are. And so, like, you have the thing of where if I were doing that, I'd be putting my money where it didn't belong.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? But because they're doing it in a way that is God glorifying, and it is what they're called to be and who they are, then it glorifies God that way. And it's very interesting to see that it doesn't really matter how it matters how we spend our money, in that if it is not where God is having us put it, then it's in the wrong spot.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's literally it. If we're not doing it the way God wants us to, that's the big problem.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I'm really excited about that because there's no wrong answers. And I like that idea.
Yeah.
That we're following this world of like, if your neighbor just got a new car, then you really need to one up them and get the better
Gotta beat
car.
him. Gotta beat him.
But instead, thinking about this idea of Christians influencing the culture, that what that really does is it breaks that normal that the world has told us is normal, and it helps us to run our own race with perseverance.
Yeah.
And I also love looking at Chip and Joanna Gaines.
I want to say hi real quick to Sarah and Jill. Thanks for hanging out, guys.
Hi, Sarah and Jill.
Sarah knows what we're talking about with the kids close.
She knows.
All right, so you want to talk about Chip and Joanna.
Chip and Joanna.
In regards to all this.
And talking about them influencing the culture.
Man, they have done such a good job of that.
I mean, it's so exciting.
Such a beautiful example
because
of that.
They started out as a home decorating show. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, it's interesting what they're doing, but there's a bunch of shows like that. There's Property Brothers. There's, they were on that Discovery Channel, was it Discovery? Oh, TLC, whatever. I don't know what channel it was, but it was like they were just doing something that other people had already done, except for they had God in their corner, and they were doing their work heartily as unto the Lord.
Operating in their gifts.
Yes.
Being their true and authentic selves. Yeah.
And you watched
beautiful combination.
It just like sweep the nation. So much so that they started expanding and expanding and expanding and expanding. If you go to Waco, you're going to see their stuff. It's all over the place. And that town has been really blessed. A town that previously had been kind of not spoken of well.
Yeah.
The way the wackos in Waco,
Yeah.
They've changed the culture there, where people it's a travel destination now.
Yeah.
Instead of it being one of those places where people are like, "Ooh, never want to go there."
Yeah. That'd be crazy
Right?
to look back at the numbers, like just on tourism
Oh my
in
gosh.
Waco and how it's changed. And
Because literally, I thought it was a town full of just the cult members. That's what I thought.
yeah,
In
no,
my
I know.
limited
And now
understanding.
we have visited there, 2 or 3 times?
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty crazy.
So there's that, and then there's they have a magazine, and now they have their own network. So they are able to, create their own shows on there, but then also handpick other Christians who this other show, The Established Home, it's really great. It's like I'm watching a Christian live life.
Yeah.
Like I told you, I'm like, this is so interesting to watch because she's not a show off, but she's doing really great work that you've seen all over Pinterest and Instagram. like really, really high end, wonderful work that is getting recognized by everybody. But she's like living this simple and quiet life. And I think that's exciting. I'm like, she's just living out the Bible. We're just getting to watch it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that is redefining the culture, not just that show, but then this network where the Chip and Joanna can cherry pick who goes on there to influence the culture. I love that idea.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And it's just by them running their own race.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
So anyway, yeah, I'm just excited about this, and I think we wanted to share this as a encouragement, helped you better understand why we think that managing your finances is so important. Is not so that you can copy us or Chip and Joanna, but so that you can influence the culture around you.
Yeah,
just by doing what God has for you to do.
And I remember
it's exciting.
Years ago, talking to a guy who's also in the personal finance space, who's not a Christian, and he kind of came up to me and he's like, I don't know how the conversation went exactly, but it was something to the effect of, hey, that's really cool that you found your unique angle on personal finance. Like, that's a great marketing strategy.
Thanks.
Like, that's what it was. It was like, that's a great marketing strategy, like, but we both know there's no difference between what you're talking about and what I'm talking about. And I'm like, there's actually a major difference. Like, our faith, like, radically changes how we think about personal finance and money management. And, you know, and at the same time, everything we just said here, when we do that and when we actually operate in that and God flows through our lives and through our finances, the world is changed in a way that people would never be able to believe or imagine. And the sad thing to me is that I think a lot of Christians actually think like he did, where it's like, this just doesn't matter. Like, this is not spiritual. This is not significant. This is just whatever. It's just money. It's like, it's just whatever, a bar of soap. Like, it's just, and it's just, it could not be further from the truth. And anyway, so we just wanted to share this to add a little bit of clarity to our mission, why we exist, and what we desire to see for the world.
And for you.
Yeah, and for your life. And, you know, and everyone that you represent, everyone that your life is going to affect. So,
well, yeah, and I should interject really fast that I feel like we talked about influencing the entire culture in a way that is on a grand scale. And the fact is, the simple truth is that is not everyone's calling.
Yeah.
And I don't think that we should be seeking that out. But if you are called to be an intercessor at the church after you retire, you want to be in the position where you can just sit there and pray all day long. You know what I mean?
And you don't have to work till you're 85 years old.
Yeah.
And therefore not be able to do that thing that God called you to do, is to be an intercessor in retirement.
The prayer closet, all the time.
You know, like, there's 100 different examples of what that can look like, where money plays into it.
Yeah, which is probably the thing that influences the culture more than anything else. I just want to, I want to make that really clear that I'm not saying everyone needs to be doing. I just wanted the counterpoint of, you have to give all your money away and you can't spend any money on yourself. I wanted it to be in context of, we're seeing how we all have different roles to play. So,
all right, y'all.
Anyway,
that's what we had to share today. Hope you're having a fantastic day.
Yeah.
If you have any prayer requests, send them over to us in Instagram at SeedTime, and we would love to pray with you. If you haven't left a review for the show, we would appreciate it. It's super helpful for us, and we love you. Have a great day.
Yep.
See ya.
See ya.